Hi and welcome to this week's Outlook. This is Kim speaking on Monday, the 16th of January. So, before I get on and talk about the currencies in detail from a technical analysis aspect, let's just have a quick review of the upcoming data or news events and economic data coming out this week. Um, all week we've got the World Economic Forum running, which means that we could get volatility coming from any of the speakers on any day. So it is the big unknown from that. I say all week, it's running from tomorrow onwards, so Tuesday the 17th onwards. Aside of that, then, CPI inflation data coming out 9:30 for the UK. That's normally got a bit of volatility around it. I've discovered it's about 11:45, I think it is, that Prime Minister May should be speaking and giving some more notes and details around Brexit, so there'll be a lot of volatility I expect around that. So it's expected, as I say, at 11:45. I've struggled to find a source of which actually had the time on it. Okay, and then later on at 3 p.m. we've got a Treasury Secretary Lew speaking regarding tax reform, etc. And quite a lot there actually at 3 p.m. So it could get some volatility going on at 3 p.m. as well. Okay, Wednesday, uh, big figures coming out in the morning. Got the employment data coming out for the UK at 9:30. Then we go into inflation at 1:30 for the US. CAD data coming out at 3 p.m. Rate statements, and then at 4:15 the press conference. There are a couple of other speakers. Yellen speaking at 8 p.m., but I believe that's something quite low key, effectively. Okay, and Thursday then, important data on Thursday. Well, Aussie dollar. We've got the employment data coming out at 12:30 a.m. and then it's pretty much quietish, he says, until 12:45. We've got the bid rate coming out for Europe, and then the ECB press conference with Draghi at 1:30. Normally get some volatility around that. I expect it to be a bit more suppressed than normal, a little bit softer, but who knows? There is also a heap of other data coming out exactly on the 1:30 timer. So we've got building permits, Philly Fed, etc. Not big movers, but we may get a little bit of volatility around 1:30 on that data. Okay, then leading into, of course, we've got crude inventories on 4 p.m. for those that follow oil or the Canadian dollar, which it tends to have the biggest rider on. And then leading into Friday, we've got significance here looking through the day. Retail sales 9:30 UK, then inflation in Canadian dollar will affect the Canadian dollar at 1:30. And a couple of speakers. We've got President-elect Trump speaking. He should be sworn in at some point on the 20th, and he's expected to speak. So, again, we may get a bit more volatility. I doubt we get very much significant meaning coming from it. Not that I'm running down, it's just that I'm sure we get some more detail as we run through next week's. Right, okay, let's get on to the technicals and where we belong. So, as expected last week, I was talking about this and we did get some follow through last week. We've actually put a weekly pivot swing in on the euro there. There is the possibility that it could push up still towards that daily 21, and I'm still erring a bit towards the bullish side, but it is pretty slow. It is a bit of spiky. We've had sort of shooting stars on Thursday. Friday didn't finish off fantastically, and it's sold off a little bit and not really done hardly anything at all today. But this is just consolidating, and there is a chance it could continue pushing up, and that's the way, as I said, from the weekly back and from the dailies, it looks like it may be going. Okay, cable. Well, we start the week with a massive gap here down. We've made new multi-year lows, even breaking the spike that we saw back on the 3rd of October, which incidentally no one still realizes what actually happened and caused it. Anyway, got a big gap there, which could yet be filled. I'm in a small long position on it, but that may not be lasting too much longer, just looking at this price action. We do have May, of course, speaking tomorrow, and we could have a short squeeze, which could obviously push the cable back up there. Of course, anything to do with Brexit, and it seems to generally sell off initially, but it'll be interesting in terms of how much detail May gives away tomorrow. But that could be the difference between us running up towards that weekly pivot or turning and tail and continue to the downside. Maybe heading for parity yet. It's not far away. Anyway, so at the moment, well, as I say, short term, I'm still looking at it, expecting the gap to be filled. Technically, they're normally filled at some point, and it's normally sooner rather than later. But anything can happen tomorrow, and generally overnight. So we could wake up in the morning and see it's dropped down another 100 or so pips. It is a risky trade at the moment. Oops, sorry. Okay, let's look at the dollar yen. Still expecting this to come off further as well, back towards its weekly 21s. It's consolidating, but it is still, again, pivot swing territory on the weeklies. It does look weakish. However, there has been some sort of divergence on the 4-hourly time frames that may hold it and make it come back to its, or help it back to its weekly pivots, which is just above for the daily 8. But any sell-off from that could see us purging straight through this 50 next time. It's been tested a few times anyway. It seems to be holding at the moment, but if we, as I say, if we can get rid of that that weekly pivot out of the way, or if we just start selling off and breaking through the S1, we could be on further and eventually heading back towards that 100 MA. Okay, Aussie dollar. From a weekly point of view, solid week through the 21 there, breaking back up and looking reasonably bullish, although it's coming up to this previous level of weekly resistance, and it may just hold it. It's certainly looking better than it was. Now it has got a weekly pivot below, so we have got jobs coming out this week, and that can be the main mover, and probably will be the main mover for the Aussie dollar this week. So we'll see how that comes out. But well, at the moment, it's just the way it's consolidation. We'd like to see it come back and catch the weekly pivot, but if it does break above these highs, well, we could be back towards that 77.50 area. And the Canadian dollar. So look at the weeklies first, and much cheering as it eventually broke this trend line that's sort of sitting here through this regression channel. However, today it's pulled back a little bit at the moment, but does look like it could still continue to the downside there. A bit messy on the dailies here at the moment. It did put in a big hammer on Thursday, Friday. Well, short inside day, and today it's not really done too much at all either. It's all over its weekly pivot at the moment. Any sort of sell-offs, and I'd be looking to see if it could break. I'd really like to see it back below that 200, but if you notice, the daily 200 has scooped around a little bit behind it, and I'm just wondering if it will give it some support if it does come back towards it. But if it does break, I'd rather be on the short side for a continuation to the downside. Okay, that's pretty much it on there. Let's just have a quick look at oil and see where we're sitting with oil. As I said last week, consolidating, and the week in the end it did consolidate pretty much. Came off a tad shortly after I think I spoke last week. It's a typical thing. I think it's Monday. It just sold straight off there. There we go. Anyway, it's holding up reasonably well and sitting in a bigger range, and I expect with the agreements that's been made that oil should sit in that sort of range, maybe between $49-50 and probably $55, maybe $56, pushing in that range. So it may, as I say, expect it to be a bit more range bound. I will just, I know some of you are always asking about the indices, and I will just look at a bit of a delayed S&Ps here. So the weeklies have been pushing up yet again. Last week put a pivot swing back in there, which really may suggest some further upside. Now, obviously, if we're getting further upside there, the dollar may just be coming off a little bit more. I'm sure there's plenty of stuff that's going to be said that may help companies and corporations in the US, although we are starting to run into news, but earnings when I say news, which may slow things down, but it'll be interesting how it develops here. So That's the S&Ps there. Let's just have a look at the dailies, and what you can see it's a bit messy on the dailies here, chopping around. It's a sort of what we often get around a near-term high. Still haven't got the monthly pivot hit below. Would like to see that done. Obviously, statistically, it didn't catch last month. Well, perhaps if we do, unfortunately, it may be detrimental to the euro and the pound. But if we see the the S&Ps coming off here, breaking at 21, would be looking for the monthly pivot, maybe even the 50 MA. So the MAs tend to draw a price just as well as anything. So things to watch out for there. If we see any sort of rallies elsewhere, we could see dollar selling and a push up across through that R1 and into new highs. Okay, that's pretty much it for me. Hope you have a great week. Bye for now.